Hey, this is Chad with Be Gone for Good. Today we're going to be talking all about the Africa Twin's DCT and how that works on-road and off-road, and my experiences when I took it off-road in the Utah BDR. Stay tuned! All right, first off, just to get this disclaimer out there, I am not an expert rider. I don't know the intricacies of the DCT and how everything works and the technical specifications on there. All I know is the things that I've experienced through riding a manual all the way down through Central America, and then riding the AT for a few years, including through some pretty rugged sections of the Utah BDR and how that operated off-road. If you've seen the videos from Fort 9 about the DCT and from Motor Trek about the DCT, then this will be a nice addendum to that. If you haven't seen those, I've left the links down below. Those are great, very informative videos that'll tell you a lot of the information that you need to know about the Africa Twin DCT and how it works for riders who have a lot more experience than I do. First off, one of the best parts of having the DCT is the no stalling aspect of it, especially when you get off-road. Now, I know that if you are good with your clutch and can take care of the bike really well, stalling shouldn't be an issue for you, but a lot of times when you come head first into one of those rocks or you slip in a way that's gonna throw your bike off a little bit, stalls are a fairly common issue riding off-road. But with the DCT, you don't have to deal with it. There's no time where my bike stalled out. There's no time where it died on me. None of the issues of my many falls that I did on that trip created a situation where the bike stalled, or none of them were created by a stall also, which can be a similar factor in there. It just takes a lot of that thought process out of there, that you don't have to worry about where your throttle control is exactly, at least in terms of stalling the bike, which is really nice, and you can just concentrate on riding. If you're thinking about the DCT or have a DCT now that you're learning how to ride, especially for off-road, one of the best things that I can tell you as far as advice is concerned in controlling that bike is learning how to do slow maneuvers. Now I know that this is a lot of ways that you are taught off-road stuff to begin with, is just going through slow maneuvers, because if you can control the bike slowly, you tend to be able to do better as it picks up also. Now the DCT works completely different from a manual bike as far as slow maneuvers, where you would feather the clutch and throttle control to get you to that spot. On the DCT, you have to work with throttle control still, but instead you use the rear brake to really put the entire system into tension, but also to provide you that capability of acting against that throttle. Almost the same thing that you would do with a clutch, but instead you're doing it with the rear brake. Now, as I first started riding the DCT, I was not good at this. I never really got good feathering the clutch and doing slow maneuvers on the manual either. But once I started practicing my slow stuff with the AT and working with the rear brake and just giving enough throttle that the two of them kind of work in conjunction, I got a lot better at slow maneuvers, doing figure eights, tight turns, using momentum instead of speed to get over certain obstacles. All of that really, really greatly improved and would be a huge factor in riding off-road if you can learn exactly where that line is between enough power to get you moving forward and enough brake to keep you in tension and under control. Now, one of the factors that Motor Trek brought up when it came to the DCT is how important body position is for you on the AT DCT version. I don't know that I entirely agree, because I don't think I'm great with body control. I don't know that I'm really good at keeping myself in the proper position on the bike, but I didn't run into the issues that were brought up there. I will, however, bring them up to you as well, just so that you can be aware that this is an issue that you might run into. So when you have a manual bike and you are working on going up or down certain obstacles, you always have that emergency get out of jail free card clutch pull that you can do and immediately cut power to that rear wheel. On a DCT, you don't have that. So if your throttle goes open, you are gonna ride. You are going along with that one. There's nothing you can really do once that throttle pops open other than shutting that throttle down. Now, if you are leaned back too far on that bike and you whiskey throttle it, throwing you further back on that bike, the chances of you getting over top of it and being able to put that throttle off are very, very unlikely. So you have to be aware that if you do punch this too hard and throw yourself back, you are going to be in a really sticky situation. Now, in Utah, there may have been one spot where this happened to me, and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I was going up a very steep incline, hit a rock that popped me backwards, which I think I gunned it a little bit there, and it essentially shot the bike out from underneath me. Now, it all happened so fast that I don't know that even if I was on a manual bike that I would have been able to control that and pull that clutch back in and bring it all back down. So it's more rider error there than the difference in the bikes, obviously. But just be aware that if you're on a DCT and you're going to be doing off-roading where the bike is kind of jumping around underneath you a lot, you need to make sure that you are in a position where you can always roll off that throttle if you need to. Unlike the manual bikes where you can just pull that clutch in and immediately have that power cut. That option is not available to you on the DCT. Now, a couple of the benefits of having the DCT when you're off-road, at least benefits that I found when I was doing my riding, was anytime you are on a hill and you're going to be going up that hill and you may be stopped or you may be having to start slowly on that hill, having just a nice, simple throttle that you can roll into it and you don't have to worry about stalling and falling back down the hill is really, really great. As long as you can get a foot on the rear brake or even holding that front brake while you're throttling on, again, putting that bike in tension a little bit, and then as soon as you feel that power grabbing, you can let go of those brakes and really ease your way up that hill. The fact that the DCT can power on so smoothly with just a throttle roll helps you to make that a nice, easy transition up that hill, as opposed to trying to feather that clutch just right so that you can get that power while not spinning the rear wheel or stalling it and going back down the hill. That's one of the great advantages of the DCT. The other is when I was going downhill and I wanted to make sure that I could keep control of the bike, but I also wanted my feet out in case I had to push off of rocks or keep myself upright. Having that rear emergency brake on the handlebars is a pretty nice feature also. I don't know if it's technically supposed to be used that way, but I did. So I wanted to maintain a seated position so I could have my feet outboard and pushing off of rocks and keeping myself steady and upright. And I used that rear handbrake to kind of slow my progression down that hill in that way, which is obviously something with a manual bike and the rear brake being on your right foot that you wouldn't be able to do. So maybe it's not exactly the right way to do it. Maybe a more skilled rider would find a better way to do it, but having that handbrake there was a really nice added benefit. So I know that a lot of people have talked about this and have asked me about this when it comes to the DCT, especially off-road, or I guess technically you could do this on-road also. You probably just don't run into nearly the grades up and down that you do off-road. But several have asked me, does the bike search for gears going uphill or downhill? And I can tell you this, that even given a little bit of experience on the manual side, the DCT performs admirably going up hills and down hills and not searching for gears or not punching you into a gear that you don't want to be in while you're going up or down. I'm thinking that there's probably some electronics and some ballasts inside that let the bike know whether or not it's going up or down a grade so that it doesn't make those shifts on you. But it was always in a proper gear and always held that gear while I was maintaining that speed going up hills or down hills. And the worst case scenario is if you do happen to pop that gear at the wrong time, you have those finger paddles available to you on the left-hand side, which will always get you back to where you want to be. You can go manual during those times as well, which might make it a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about the DCT taking over for you and just shooting you into a gear that you don't belong in. But ultimately, I think the DCT did a very, very good job. There was never a moment where I felt I should go manual or that I needed to use the paddle shifters to get me back where I wanted to go. It was always in a good gear. It always stuck that gear very well and held me through whatever progression that I was making. The other aspect about the DCT that I think is important and could become a factor depending on how much riding you're doing off-road or even on-road for this matter. I know I had one trip that I took up through Chicago where it started raining and I was in traffic for about 2 hours, and I mean wall-to-wall traffic, start and stop, you know, we weren't going anywhere. And my clutch hand was really getting tired because there was no point where I could kind of take my hand off and relax a little bit because we never went more than a few feet at a time. Knowing that the DCT, you don't have to worry about that is kind of a nice thing to have, that there's never that moment where you're stuck on the handlebars for too long. You can always get a little bit of a break, a little bit of a rest. And I know that I'm much more confident taking long trips knowing that my clutch hand has an opportunity to be free just as much as my throttle hand, depending on the traffic conditions. that is a real benefit to the DCT. And I know there's a lot of traditionalists out there that have been like, you know, if your clutch hand isn't strong enough, you shouldn't be riding, blah, blah, blah. But I was a really big fan of how easy it is to ride this bike, not only on road, but definitely off road, that it wasn't something that I had to consider all the time. I wasn't always checking different gears, and I know that you can stay in second or third most of the time off road and be fine. But knowing that that clutch just was off my table altogether was a really nice benefit to have on the AT, and one that I would suggest that if you're interested in having the DCT, could be a game changer for you. That's all I really have for you on the Africa Twin DCT going on-road and off-road. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did and you'd like to see this sort of stuff about the Africa Twin or the CB500X or any other bikes or trips that I'm taking, definitely subscribe to the channel down below, hit that like button to help us out a little bit, and hit that bell notification so that you get updates anytime we upload a new video. I also have a Teespring link down in the description where you can get shirts like this, other gear, and a Patreon page as well if you'd like to further support the channel. We are nearing about 3,000 subscribers, which I want to say thank you to all of you out there, because that's a great testament to how much you have been sharing these videos and talking to your friends and family about what we're doing here. I really appreciate it, and Be Gone for Good has got some great things planned for this year. Just as an update, the Mid-Atlantic looks like it's still going to be going on. We will be doing that BDR in late July, mid-July. Everything with COVID seems like it's going to be sort of slowing down at that time. We should be able to get that trip in, but I will be updating you accordingly. Again, if you want to hear more about the Mid-Atlantic or any other things about these bikes, any of the bikes I've ridden before, leave a comment down below. I generally have a chance to get answers out to everybody. So thank you very much for watching. Again, this is Chad with Be Gone for Good signing off. Have a good one.